cheese, no design on my jacket. Work hard, now I'm changing my bracket. Talk tough, we ain't hearing that racket. Dogs came in, you know how to stack it. Don't take it wrong, but I'ma need my ends though. I got tigers on my chest like Kenzo. Rail came, yeah, he putting that Benz though. Carol's here, man, you know he stay 10 toes. Big dog, man, you know I ain't worried. Bent up, so I'm talking real slurry. Got a blast, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How we doing, baby? This is the voice in your ears, Adam Caplan with AC Radio, and we got a lot to talk about. We got UFC Paris, UFC 279, Diaz versus CHIMAEV. We got a little Q&A as usual, talking fight, fitness, and motivation. So let's get right into it. First off, we're going to talk about the co-main event. We got Robert Whittaker versus Marvin Vettori. Robert Whittaker was victorious in the third round by a TKO. Just really showed his dominance. He just showed yet again why Robert the Reaper Whittaker is absolutely the number one guy in the middleweight division. And, you know, the reason why I say the number one guy is because Izzy is the champion. And in the UFC rankings, you don't consider the champion as number one. You consider him the champion. So, listen, just picked apart Vettori. Showed very early on that he was holding his hands too low, kept ripping that high kick to the head of Marvin Vettori, which kept him distracted. And just overall, the stance and the pace that Robert Whittaker sets is just not one that Marvin Vettori was able to get a grip on. Another thing, too, is that Robert Whittaker is one of the best grapplers in the division. Marvin Vettori isn't a bad grappler, but wasn't going to be able to utilize it against Robert Whittaker. So not much to talk about there. Why? Because I really believe that Robert Whittaker is the number one guy in the division. I think that he's hoping and praying that Alex Pereira wins against Israel Adesanya so that after the first and second fight with Pereira and Izzy get over with, you know, Robert Whittaker could then hopefully challenge Alex Pereira for the championship. But a lot needs to happen in order for those things to go Robert Whittaker's way. So we'll see. But the UFC middleweight division is still one of the most exciting divisions in the UFC. And, you know, I'm really looking forward to seeing how Robert Whittaker just goes on this complete winning streak and just keeps on winning and winning and winning. Because when you have a fighter like Robert Whittaker that just has one guy in the division that he can't beat, but the rest of the division isn't on his level, it's really something special to see. And it will also make for perhaps some super fights to open up for Robert Whittaker. And I think that that's something that he should challenge. I know it's not in his personality, but if Robert Whittaker could perhaps look at the welterweight division or maybe even the 205 division, more so the welterweight division, call somebody out, try to build a little bit of a storyline, I think that perhaps Robert Whittaker could get a money fight on his hands as well. You know, I think that there's plenty of matchups in the welterweight division that we could do at a catchweight with Robert that would completely blow the roof off of things in a co-main event. So shout out to Robert Whittaker, put on another great performance against Marvin Vettori. Fans, you know, a lot of people were giving Vettori hate on Twitter. They just said, I can't believe that this is the representation that Italy has. I disagree with that. I believe that Marvin carries himself with an intensity, but a passion. Does come off as a little bit of the Italian psycho, we'll say. But you know what? Until somebody else steps up, from the country of Italy, Marvin Vettori is your guy, and I believe that Italians are still going to back him. So whatever everyone else is saying doesn't really matter. And what truly does matter is that at the end of that fight, that arena in Paris was screaming, Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. So that was something to see. Obviously, as per usual, you know, when a UFC event happens in a country that has either not had an event happen for quite a while, or in this instance is now legalized in that country and the fans could actually go and see it, you know for a fact that the performances are going to be A1 from the hometown lads, and you also know that the crowd is going to blow the roof off that place. I mean, people don't realize that the French culture is just as passionate about their sport as the British are, as the Irish are, as the Americans are, as the Australians are, and as the Kiwis are, as the New Zealanders. So very passionate fans, a very passionate fan base. They were singing and dancing the whole night. They had that football inspiring crowd, which that stadium crowd, which really fuels the fighters and really puts the event to a decibel point that you really can't pinpoint unless you are there in the stadium. So a great event in UFC Paris, and that brings us to our main event, Ciryl Gane versus Tai Tuivasa. Great fight. An emphatic performance from both guys. Ciryl Gane picked apart Tai Tuivasa with those body shots, teeps to the belly, knees to the belly, knees to the belly as well. And, you know, I believe I said knees twice there, did I? Teeps, knees, and roundhouse kicks. So, you know, what I really hated to see, though, in that first round from Tai Tuivasa is that he was playing into Gane's hand, that surgical hand that he plays when he's in the octagon, that slow, patient, methodical pace that he sets in the first round with the leg kicks, with the teeps to the body, and then landing that smooth jab. And then also sticking and moving at all times. Gane is a surgeon in there. And Tai Tuivasa played into that hand. Why? Because it's not so easy just to close the distance, slanging and banging, trying to knock out your opponent when they're able to stick and move like that. But on the flip side, Tuivasa was able to drop Ciryl Gane in that second round after being picked apart the entire time to the body. And that completely changed the course of the fight for a small bit of time. It changed the momentum. And even when Gane got knocked down, the French fans were still going crazy. They almost didn't care that the hometown crowd was at the mercy of Tai Tuivasa for a second. But, you know, Ciryl Gane shows that he has that desire, that he has that heart. He gets up off of the cage. He goes right back at Tai Tuivasa. He hits him to the body. Tai Tuivasa curls over, looks like he's going to keel over and fold, and then he throws an overhand right as Gane is running in to try to finish the fight by a TKO. The fans are on their feet going crazy, and then comes that third round. You know, Tai is bloody. Tai is stumbling a little bit. The belly is all swollen because he's been taking shots all night from Ciryl Gane, and took one more body shot, couldn't handle it. And then Ciryl Gane ended up finishing the fight. The fans went absolutely crazy. Gane showed Tuivasa a tremendous amount of love after a tremendous amount of class. He showed the fans, the world, and the UFC that he is definitely there to stay and should definitely be somebody who is going to continue to be in the title conversation with Francis Ngannou, with perhaps Stipe Miocic, with Curtis Blades, and the new dark horse who's coming in there, the Dark Knight, John Jones. So we'll see what happens. A great night in UFC Paris. Ciryl Gane prevails. He wins. He comes out to that great French rap anthem, had the crowd on their feet. So congrats to the UFC on an emphatic event in Paris. And now we got to get to the one and only Nate Diaz versus Khamzat Chimaev. Now, the problem with this one is we're kind of looking like our boy Nate Diaz is getting sent to the slaughterhouse on his last fight in the UFC. And we know exactly why that's happening. Nate Diaz and Nick Diaz and Dana White have had a history of going back and forth and have had a history of never being on the same page. Every time Dana has said A, the Diaz brothers have then said, in fact, the conversation went B. They have never been on the same page. We have always seen a huge gap, well, at least as of lately, a huge gap in between their previous fight and then their next fight. And that is due to the fact of all the commotion that goes on behind the scenes. And now, Nate Diaz has the opportunity to finally fight himself out of his contract of the UFC. And let's just say Dana White does not like it. Why? Because Nate Diaz is a fucking superstar. And Dana White knows that Nate Diaz is going to go on, perhaps fight with Jake Paul, perhaps get a mega contract with some type of boxing promotion, perhaps go and get a big contract with Bellator, or perhaps try to promote his own fights and just make as much money as possible, you know. And let's just say Jake Paul is ringing in the wins. So, you know, I hate to see this matchup. Why? Because our boy Nate Diaz is going to have a tough matchup in him against that wolf, Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev is on a quest right now for the title. And the big boss gave him a call and said, hey, Chimaev, we need you to do a little bit of a side quest. We need you to do a little bit of the boss's work. We need to send a final fuck you to Nate Diaz before he sails off and probably makes more money in his career than he's ever made in his life. So I want you to take Nate Diaz down up against that cage, pin him up against the cage, and if you want to beat him up for 5 rounds, do it. But, I want you to make damn sure that fight is finished. And I know that's a little bit too far. I know that the conversation didn't go obviously that way. Most of my delivery there was actually telling you what I think the game plan is. I think that CHIMAEV is going to look to take Nate Diaz, drag him across that octagon, pin him up against the cage, bring him down, probably get a little knee on belly action and try to put the gangster out. That's what I think is going to happen. I think that CHIMAEV is looking to utilize his wrestling. We've seen before Nate Diaz doesn't really do well at all against wrestlers. And then you add into the fact that CHIMAEV has dynamite ground and pound. This is what's scaring us Nate Diaz fans. But on the flip side, there's always a small part of us that thinks and knows that Nate Diaz has a heart of a lion. We saw in that 5th round against Leon Edwards after losing for 4 rounds consecutively that he was almost able to finish Leon Edwards. He had him dazed on the feet, just didn't have enough time on the clock or maybe an extra round underneath his belt to prevail against Leon Edwards. But as Ariel Helwani has stated in the past, Nate Diaz takes these small moments in the octagon and even outside of the octagon against his opponents and takes the smallest victory and then knows how to spin it into a dominant victory. And what I mean by that is like the guy was getting beat for 24 minutes and about 30 seconds. And then there was a 30-second moment in the Leon Edwards and Nate Diaz fight that Nate was actually able to almost show that he was going to win the fight. And then he took that moment and he fucking ran with it to the end zone. And that's what Nate continuously does. That's why we love him. That's why the brass hates him. So, if at least, Khamzat Chimaev comes out with a dominant victory, if we could find one small moment that Nate Diaz could prevail and we could go off in the sunset with that moment, that'll be a W in itself. But, unfortunately, I am calling this a very one-sided matchup. And if anybody knows me personally, they should know I don't mind being fucking wrong. I love being wrong. So in this instance, if I'm wrong and Nate Diaz goes out there and beats Khamzat Chimaev, I'm fucking happy. I'm stoked. So, and then on that co-main event, we have Tony Ferguson versus Li Jilang. And I'm thinking to myself, shout out to Li Jilang, man. Guy got fucking murked by Khamzat Chimaev at 170 pounds, completely embarrassed. And now he's on his undercard. Now he's on his co-main event against Tony Ferguson, who, is a UFC legend. It's like, shout out to him. You never know where a guy's career is going to go. You never stop fucking trucking. Okay, and I know it's maybe not the biggest deal. Okay, you're fighting Tony Ferguson. Guy just got front kicked by Michael Chandler. Now he has his last chance at welterweight. No. This is MMA, baby. We don't look at it the same way as boxing fans do. We appreciate these types of storylines, and we appreciate the guys who have perhaps double digits in their loss record even. We don't care. MMA fans are different from boxing fans. So shout out to Li Jilang. And shout out to Tony Ferguson, because after that last performance, you would think that it would be safe to say that he should hang it up. But guy wants to come out at 170 pounds and go in there for one more run. All power to you, Tony. I mean, you know how it goes when you get into that cage or that ring. CTE, your life, your family, all of it is on the line regardless. So all of them that are claiming CTE and brain damage, etc., I mean, this is going to happen regardless. So if Tony Ferguson has to do this in order to fulfill his prophecy to the fullest, who am I to judge? And if I'm one person, though, who is judging and is shaking his head and is looking in the fucking mirror in disappointment, it's Conor McGregor. Because I look at UFC 279, I look at Nate Diaz at 170 pounds, and I look at Tony Ferguson at 170 pounds, and then I look at the two guys that they're matched up with, and I can't help but think that Conor McGregor should be fighting at least one of these guys. And maybe not in September, maybe in January, maybe in February, maybe in March. But these aren't the matchups that should be happening. Nate Diaz or Tony Ferguson at welterweight should be fighting Conor McGregor. Why? Because those are the two biggest and most beatable matchups that Conor McGregor could have right now. There's a storyline with Tony Ferguson, aka, Tony Ferguson versus Conor McNuggets. And then there's a storyline between Nate Diaz and Conor McGregor as per usual. So that's a fight that should have happened. So I'm really hoping, though, at the very least, listen, if everything goes the way it should and Nate Diaz is on his way out, that fight is not going to happen with Conor McGregor anymore. So then, hopefully we would be able to get Conor then versus Tony Ferguson at 170 pounds. Because I really don't think that there's many fights out there for Conor McGregor that are very beatable. And given the way his frame looks right now, he probably will be fighting at 170 pounds. And Kamaru Usman is not the guy. Jorge Masvidal is not the guy. Covington's not the guy. But Ferguson at 170, Nate Diaz at 170, I'll take it. Yeah, I will. So, if I'm Conor, I'm like, yet again, missed the boat. Might not ever have that trilogy with Nate Diaz again. And if Tony Ferguson gets knocked out or loses or shows a very impressive performance, and isn't invited back to fight or retires, he's lost another opponent in Tony Ferguson. So sad, boo-hoo. But, if I'm Conor McGregor, once again, I feel like I missed the boat a little bit. And I feel like maybe posting about Proper 12 or, submit appropriate things with my wife is maybe not really the priority. And maybe I should, get a fucking matchup in the works and start getting back in there in the mix. And I know I'm being critical there. It's kind of like, hold on, you don't know what the fuck is going on behind the scenes. Yeah, I know that. But you know what? I'm sick and tired of the talk. I want to see the action, baby. And I'm saying that because I'm a fan. So that's what I got for you on the UFC 279 mark. That's what I got for you on the UFC Paris mark. And I just wanted to take a quick second to thank everybody for tuning in always to AC Radio. 150 views last week. We're climbing with each week. You guys are being really receptive in the comment section and the liking, and as well with the Q&A stuff. I just really, really appreciate it. And the reason why I think it's important for me to say it is because I find in today's society with these things and that fucking react button and that like button, people don't know how to say thank you anymore. Everyone just sends you a thumbs up or they click the heart, They don't even know how to use their fucking thumbs to say thank you. That's not cool, man. You got to thank people in today's day. You got to be appreciative of people that are supporting your ventures and are supporting you as a friend and as a person. Because there's a lot of people out there that are trying to be something of themselves and don't have their friends and family supporting them. So when I see 150 people and I look at the analytics and most of the people are from Montreal, I thank those fucking people because they don't have to listen to my show. They don't have to believe in my dream. They don't have to believe in AC Radio and the podcast. But if they take a couple of minutes out of their day to like, subscribe, leave a comment, listen to the question that I answered for them, or even listen to a little bit of the UFC preview, that shit warms my heart, baby. Why? Because you don't have to do that. And I find in today's day, with all that liking, all that reacting, and the thumbs up and the hearts, not enough people are saying thank you. You have this fucking phone, which is a supercomputer that could literally answer any question that you have on Google in a millisecond, but we as people choose to message our friends and bombard them and ask them a very simple question that they can go and search for themselves. And then when that friend or that person goes out of their way to relay that information and that data, instead of you taking the second to use your fucking phone, you then have the audacity to hit the thumbs up or hit the like button instead of saying thanks, bro, or thanks, sister, appreciate you. So go the extra fucking mile and start saying thank you more often. Because you don't realize how much it means to people. And you also don't realize that by you not saying thank you, you're being fucking entitled, number one. And number two, you're kind of showing like, yeah, you owed me that answer. No one owes you shit. So always say thank you and always show love and always show appreciation. So I love every single each and one of you. I love every single each and every one of you for, just showing love to AC Radio. So respect to that. And with that, a little sip of coffee because we're recording a little early today. Couldn't crank the Happy Dad. It's before 12 o'clock. Can't be cranking the Happy Dads before 12 unless I'm on that vacances. That's French for vacation. So little sip of coffee and then we're getting to that Q&A, baby. We got fight talk. We got fitness talk. And of course, we got that motivation and ambition. And there goes the sound of that bell, baby. And we got our Q&A segment, my favorite part of AC Radio. Let's get that fight talk going, baby. I got my man Jason asking, do you think Nate Diaz and Tony Ferguson stand a chance next card, or are we going to add two more legends to the RIP list this year? Well, first of all, shout out to Jason, one of the most educated viewers of AC Radio. Guy is all over the United States, going to Vegas, Dallas, Texas, going to Florida, going to all the UFC shows. He's no stranger to the road. So shout out to Jason, who knows his UFC, who knows his PFL, who knows his Bellator, who in fact knows his MMA. That's what I'm trying to say. And listen, I mean, I don't like to say the RIP list because I think the name and the brand and the legacy of Nate Diaz or the Diaz brothers will always live on. And I think that there is a lot of stock in his career after the UFC. We've clearly seen that losses have never actually diminished Nate Diaz's superstardom. Yeah, there's a lot more fans out there that are perhaps more critical of superstars like a Nate Diaz, like a John Jones, like a Conor McGregor, due to their losses in the or out of the octagon. But listen, at the end of the day, Nate Diaz is still a superstar, so the legend of Nate Diaz will never be touched, even if he gets completely murked or decimated by Khamzat CHIMAEV. So no, I don't think so at all. And on the Tony Ferguson side, I mean, look, yeah, maybe if he loses in devastating fashion to Li Jilang, I think that would hurt him a little bit in his career. But on the flip side, I mean, people already know that Tony Ferguson is on the decline. So should he lose, it won't really come as much as a surprise. So will they be on the RIP list in the sense that they'll be forced to retire or we won't see them fight in the octagon again? That's a possibility. I mean, Nate Diaz is not going to be fighting in the octagon again. And Tony Ferguson, unless Dana White says, okay, kid, I ain't having you back in here. Like, you've taken way too much damage. If Tony Ferguson still gets the okay to step in there, he should be back. So I don't entirely think we're on the RIP list because I think Tony Ferguson knows him moving to welterweight is his last chance in his career. And he also knows, in fact, that, like I said earlier, the Conor McGregor matchup is still on the fucking table. So I think for Tony Ferguson, it's not about whether he wins or loses against Li Jilang. I think that he just needs to make the fight look close. I just think he needs to show that he still belongs in the octagon, whether it's a close decision or it's a victory for Tony Ferguson. But I don't think that a loss will hurt him if it's not a devastating one. So, no, I don't think so. I think that if Ferguson goes in there and doesn't get hurt too much or wins the fight in an impressive manner, we'll definitely see Ferguson back. And the legacy of Nate Diaz will always live on. So shout out to Jason for that one. And actually, you know what? He's got another great one, and I didn't get to talk about it during the UFC Paris segment. Stipe versus Jones or Gane versus Jones? What do you think? I mean, look, Stipe's been out for such a long time and has kind of showed that he's clearly shown that he's a family man and a firefighter and that he has a life outside of the octagon. And he's also older and he's taken damage and he's had disdain with the UFC. I don't really know how excited I am about Stipe versus Jones. Perhaps I'm excited about it in the sense that because Stipe is one of the greatest UFC heavyweights of all time versus the greatest light heavyweight of all time, yeah, I love that matchup. But to an extent, I also use the matchup as a measuring stick as to where John Jones will lie in the UFC heavyweights division. So putting him against Gane straight up, I don't think is a great idea because Gane is somebody who is in the top three with Curtis Blades and as well as obviously Ngannou, and then Jones is going to get thrown in there, and then you have the Tom Aspinalls, of course. You see why that wouldn't make sense to put Gane and Jones in there. It would just kill a matchup. It just kills two contenders. I think putting him in against Stipe is the right move because Stipe is on the outs anyways, and then it really gets to show you if Stipe is going to be done after John Jones, or if he wins, will he even be back? So I think that the Jones versus Stipe fight is the one to make. Both guys have been inactive. You have the greatest light heavyweight of all time versus the greatest heavyweight of all time. Going in there in a matchup. And lastly, most importantly, you really get to see who is the best fighter. Who is the best fighter in John Jones versus Stipe Miocic after being that inactive? Should John Jones put on that emphatic performance, you know that Gane is a next matchup for him, or you know that Ngannou is a next matchup for him. But then if Stipe were to win, I don't really know if he's interested in fighting Francis for a third time. You know, does he want to get KO'd again? Does he still want to be in there? So a lot of questions being answered. My mind was a little bit all over the place during that question because it's tough to gauge because there's so much. First of all, it's the heavyweight division, so you really have no fucking clue what the hell is going to happen. But Stipe's been inactive. John Jones has been inactive. Francis has clearly shown that he could be the best fighter in the division, and that Gone, Aspinall, and maybe even Blades won't even touch him. So you're kind of scratching your head like, we really need this John Jones thing to work out, right? So we'll see what happens. A little bit all over the place with that one. And usually I always am able to give the clearest answer when all cards are on the table. And right now, because all cards aren't on the table, AC ain't clear, baby. So that's what I got from you, Jason. I appreciate you, man. Shout out to you for always keeping up in the sport of MMA, traveling around North America. That's a real fan. And that warms my heart that you tuned into AC Radio, that not only do I have the casuals, but I got the hardcores like you. So shout out to Jason. And then I got my man, Terry Tam, a legend in my podcast career. I mean, we used to stay up for 2-3 hours at a time, recording episodes audio only for my show, The Unanimous Decision, and then also his current website, Hot Sauce Sports. We would go on 2-3 hour tangents. Our girlfriends and our wives would worry about where the fuck we would go whenever one of us would call each other because we knew it was going to be a long chat. So if you like hockey, you like football, if you like blogging, tune into Hot Sauce Sports. Shout out to my man, Terry Tam. And he asks me, a lot of talk about Trevor Whitman being the best coach with Rose, Gaethje, and now Usman under his wing. Where does he lie in your eyes, and who else would you put at the top of the list? Love the show, bud. Thanks, Terry. Appreciate you, baby. I mean, look, Trevor Whitman is still one of the greats. You clearly see how he's transformed Kamaru Usman's career. You also see how he's transformed Gaethje's career. Now, whether or not Gaethje and Usman get the victories doesn't always rely on Trevor Whitman. That doesn't always fall on him, okay? Because Trevor Whitman was doing his job up until that head kick happened. So I don't think that any of those recent losses between Usman and Gaethje and Rose, all of their shortcomings of champions, should hurt the reputation of Trevor Whitman. Absolutely not. All of these fighters have different reasons as to why they weren't successful, and I don't believe that any of those reasons have to do with Trevor Whitman at all. So I still rank Trevor Whitman up there. I got Henry Hooft up there. I mean, how many times have we seen Henry Hooft have a fighter challenge for the fucking belt, or have a guy who's a top 3, top 5, top 10 fighter in the UFC? Faraz Zahabi, of course, shout out to TriStar. You have Mike Brown from ATT. You have Mike Perillo. You have, you got, people are going to kill me if I forget certain names. You got Faraz, you got Mike Brown. There's a million good coaches. You fucking Eugene Behrman. So, I got a lot of them. Final count, Trevor Whitman, Henry Hooft, Eugene Behrman, Faraz Zahabi, Mike Brown. Probably missing a few more. And then shout out to Leon Edwards' coach, because that speech that he gave him, that Rocky speech at the end, that shit gets my ass up in the morning. So thank you, Terry. Big fan of you as well. Thanks for the question. And let's get into a little bit of fitness talk now. First one is from my man, Nick, a.k.a. Dick. And that's not a joke, ladies and gentlemen. Dick actually got his nickname because he was on a rugby tour with St. Anne's once, and they buried him in the sand as a giant penis. And his name is Nick, so why not drop the N and replace it with the D, and we'll call him Dick. So shout out to Dickie Boy, a groomsman, a great friend of mine, and an owner of Riverside Bar in Montreal that I know a lot of you folks like to take your pants off at and party fucking hard. So shout out to you, Dickie. And he asks me, do you think the passion for combat sports had an influence on your decision to pursue contact sports like rugby and football during your athletic career? Absolutely. Great question, Dick. Cards on the table, I was a terrible football player. Short, fat kid, played lineman, didn't really like big D linemen running at me. Wasn't a great player. But when I jumped into rugby, and then I was actually able to not only be the running back, but the linebacker, but the offensive and defensive lineman, and then sometimes the quarterback, I was like, this is the fucking greatest sport ever. What I mean by that is I got to run, I got to pass, I got to tackle, and I got to lead lead on the field like a general. So from there, I was a successful rugby player. Got to slow down now. I was a successful rugby player. And listen, I had a lot of fun playing it. And then from there, it was difficult to get involved with team sports still. It was difficult for me. So what did I do? I segued to boxing. I segued to a little bit of MMA, a little bit of jiu-jitsu. Why did I do that? Because I still needed that feeling of contact sports. When you grow up in the realm of contact sports, there's a certain feeling and intensity and aggression that you get off of your chest. And that doesn't translate in basketball or in intramural hockey or in intramural soccer. It doesn't. So what do you got to do? When you need to get that off of your chest, you got to sign up to a boxing gym or a jiu-jitsu gym or an MMA gym, because you're always going to have that dog in you. You're always going to have that aggression in you. So it's important to find those outlets. And yes, I do think my history of rugby did lead me a little bit into it. But as I've spoken before on AC Radio, a lot of it also had to do with the WWE and the WWF. I love the storylines. I love the physicality. I love the intensity. And then that's what brought me to MMA. I was like, holy shit, this is real as well as the storyline and the physicality and all of that. Get me fucking on this shit. And that's where I was. So, you know, not only did being a contact sports athlete get me there, but also being, in fact, a wrestling fan. So shout out to you, Dickie. I love you, buddy. I appreciate you listening to the show. And, you know, it really teaches me that you never know who's listening to the show. And that's the beauty of it. That's the beauty of the views. You get 150 views, you get 15, 20 likes, you get 10 to 20 comments. You're thinking to yourself, who are the other 120, 130 people? And then sometimes I get these beautiful messages from great friends like Dick who message me and go, yeah, of course, I don't know much about fighting, but I support the show. So I appreciate that, man. It really means a lot to me. And that's all I got on the fitness side. Actually, no, wait. I got my man, Jay Fish. He asked a banger of a question. He said, after a caloric evening with the boys, what's the best way to get back on track / eating well or to work out? So I think what he meant with that is how should I get back on track with my workouts and my diet after having a big night with the boys? First thing is you got to get your rest on point, because you're probably going to be hungover. You're going to be underslept. Your nervous system is going to be completely out of whack. So first of all, you got to get your rest down point. If you can't fall back to sleep, at least just still continue to lie in bed and chill. After you start feeling that, like, okay, I've had enough of lying down feeling, you got to go downstairs. You got to grab a nice big glass of water, and then you got to fill it up with some lime or lemon juice. After that, you filled up your lime and your lemon juice. You're going to slowly sip on that. And then if you need to, you could actually take a separate glass of just plain water, just to kind of filter out a little bit more of that acidity from the lemon and the lime. Then from there, baby, you want to get into a nice fucking hot shower. Get it all out there, put the tunes on, baby, take a nice 15-minute hot shower, and then the last 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to blast it freezing cold. After that, once you started feeling like, holy shit, I'm cold, you got to get your breathing right. Okay, so already in a quick morning, we are focusing on our hydration. Okay, we're doing a little bit of a hot and cold circuit. We're also focusing on our rest. We're trying to calm our minds. Okay, that's what you got to do first thing. A lot of people do the opposite. They get out of bed early. They go and smoke a joint. They go out for breakfast. They go out and they just continue to fuel their bodies with more grease. So one of the best things you could do, get more rest, focus on your hydration, little hot and cold circuit. And then lastly, perhaps you got to sit down with yourself and think about how you're going to prepare for the rest of the week. You know, how are your meals going to go? How are your snacks going to go? What are you going to do on the Tuesday when you're going out with the boys out for dinner? Do you want to stay on track? Do you not want to stay on track? And then from that, you're then going to track your workouts around that. You know, you take your social events. If you know that you're going out with the boys on Tuesday night, then you probably know that Tuesday you want to put on a fucking hard workout. You want to put on an intense one. So that's what I got for you, Jordan. Focus on your rest, focus on your hydration, little hot and cold circuit. Then you got to plan out your meals. And then from there, you also will plan your workouts around your downtime, your social time, and then your work time. And from there, if you're having a hard time, you know what to do. You holler at your boy AC, and he'll fix you right up. So shout out to Jordan. I appreciate that. And then my last question is from Elan, which is a little bit of a similar question to Jordan. He asks, for someone who stays motivated during the week, but then lets themselves go during the weekend and starts back to square one on Monday, what would be your advice to be able to keep that progress going? That's a great one, and that's a tough one because AC struggles with that too. I've had a history of being, as they say, a weekend warrior. A lot of folks stay clean Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday come and they go over their calories. From Monday to Friday, they have been able to preserve that $1,000 of spending money, but then on Saturday and Sunday, they end up overspending $1,000. In fact, they end up spending close to $2,000. And then Monday happens and they're like, how the fuck am I in debt $1,000? And then you replay your weekend of all the food and the alcohol, etc. And then the regret comes in. And then the doubt comes in that you're not going to be able to pursue your goals and your dreams because you realize that once again, you were clean Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday came and you fucked it up. And I've been there. I've been there countless times. I probably did it this weekend. And my advice to you is that you don't fucking stop. You fuck up on the weekend, you go back to that Monday. And if you fuck up again, you go back to that Monday. But just know that doing the exact same things and expecting a different result is never going to fucking happen. So as long as we're all able to admit to ourselves that our patterns and our behaviors are fucked up, at least we are starting somewhere. At least we're conscious because, you know, what we don't realize is there's a lot of people who walk this earth unaware and unconscious of what they're doing, and they take no accountability for their actions. So the fact that you're asking me this question shows me that you are taking accountability and you are conscious of your actions. And the fact that I admitted to you that I do that shows the same. So I think we're the right people for this discussion, perhaps with each other. Perhaps it would be better to get a third party in here who's more successful at that. But the one thing is that you never stop answering that fucking bell. And every Saturday and Sunday that you fuck up, you go back on there on Monday and you do it again. And until you wake up on that Monday and you say, I don't want to try anymore, that's when you've truly lost. Because eventually something is going to give and something is going to click with you and something is going to matter more, whether perhaps it's something traumatic, maybe it's a medical concern, maybe it's somebody truly tells you the truth on how they feel about our habits and how you feel and whatever the case may be. There's a lot of things, but something is going to give one day. But you got to realize that if you are doing the exact same things and are expecting a different result, you're not staying true to yourself. You don't truly want it. You're not trying hard enough. You're not truly telling yourself that this is what you want for yourself. Okay? If AC Radio has a bad episode, a bad viewership, I am recording next week, whether people like it or not, or even whether I like it or not, or whether Brett likes it or not, or whether the algorithm likes it or not. The show goes on no matter what. And that's how I feel the same way about the people that struggle Saturday and Sunday, but go on Monday to Friday. The show goes on. You have another week ahead of you to go on, take on your challenges, conquer your fears, and get to the place where you want to fucking be. And there are going to be weekends where you're going to continue to screw up and continue to fool yourself and continue to make yourself feel like a joke. But that Monday is going to come and you're going to get right back on that fucking horse. And then one weekend is going to come along where you're going to tell yourself, nah, I don't need it. And once that happens and that Monday comes and your numbers are not up on the scale and they're actually lower than ever after a weekend, that's when we've got that momentum rolling, baby. So that's what we got to do, Elan. We got to keep answering that bell, never give up. And even if we continue to fail, we still get up again. Appreciate you, buddy. Thanks for the question. And lastly, we're going to get into that motivation segment. We're going to wrap it up real quick with some motivating stuff that's going to fuel us from Tuesday up until the next episode of AC Radio. And I've got my man, I've got my man Vince. Vince asks me, what do you do when life isn't going your way? Exactly what I told Elan. You keep answering that bell. Because what do you do when life doesn't go your way? You have two choices. You don't go on, you stay in bed, you let life completely pass you by. And then not only is not only did the reason that kept you in bed has now shit all over you, but now you've shit all over yourself. And that's not what you should ever do. When things don't go your way and you're pissed off, you need to take a day or two to yourself and reflect and kind of pout and get out of your system. You're entitled to that. But just know after that 24 to 48 hour period, even though you're not feeling good, you still got to work to the best of your abilities to push through it. Why? Because life does go on and people do care about you and people do want you to succeed. And even though you don't feel that in the correct moment, it's the truth. And maybe perhaps the reason why you don't feel that in the moment from your peers and your loved ones and your families is because maybe they hit you with a hot cup of the truth. Maybe you didn't like what they told you because it was true. Okay? So what do you do when you're in a bad place and times are tough? You keep on fucking trucking. You surround yourself with things that you love, that make you happy, whether it's your family, your passions, your hobbies, and your interests. And we talk about it all the time on AC Radio. It's always important to have those key fundamentals: your family, your obsessions, your passions, your inspirations, your interests, your hobbies. And if you don't have these things, we've got a fucking problem. Because when the going gets tough, those are the things that we have to rely on, because it's not our salaries, it's not the car we drive or the chain that's around our neck that defines us. It's when things get tough and we feel like we're going to a dark place, what are the lights around us that make us feel bright again? So shout out to you, Vince. I appreciate that question. And I got my last one from my favorite of all time. My wife, Karen, what is something that makes you laugh so hard all the time? And the reason why I wanted to end off with this one is I wanted to end it off on a lighter note. You know, I hit you with that action-packed energy on the fight talk. Then I hit you with that thank you. Then I hit you with that fitness and motivation. And on the Q&A segment, I had some tough questions today, so it was a little bit jumbled. So now I just want to finish off with something clear and concise. What constantly makes me laugh? I mean, first of all, you got Dave Chappelle, The Chappelle Show, Season 1, Season 2. You know, the Player Haters Ball, Rick James, Prince, Charlie Murphy's True Hollywood Stories, you know, Tyrone Biggums. I mean, the list goes on. Love me some Dave Chappelle. Shout out to Uncle Dave. You know, a lot of folks weren't happy with the last Netflix one, but I'm talking about the Comedy Central series, so don't flip the script on your boy AC now. After that, I love the Kevin Hart stand-up segment when he's doing it from his basement during the pandemic. He had a couple of fucking jokes about his daughter that completely lighted me up. I thought that was hilarious. And lastly, you know, nothing makes me laugh harder than a couple of the old Nelk Boy videos, you know, when they used to prank, when they used to go to the vineyards and completely raise mayhem, when they used to walk into the bakeries and try to have them write the most ridiculous stuff on the cake. So shout out to the Nelk Boys. Shout out to Happy Dad that dropped their new flavor, Fruit Punch. I miss my Happy Dad on the AC segment show. I could really feel my throat a little dry. Would have loved a little lemon lime or a little wild cherry action, but ain't going to be drinking a Happy Dad before 12 o'clock. So that's what I got for you today. Guys, again, appreciate you so much. AC Radio, we got the Q&As, we got the fight talk, we got the fitness, we got the motivation, we got the energy, we got the retro Owls hat 1946. You know, just appreciate all of you. And, you know, don't forget to say thank you to your loved ones. Don't forget to say thank you to your peers. And thank you to all of you. AC Radio, we're out, baby.
G's, no design on my jacket. Work hard, now I'm changing my bracket. Talk tough, we ain't hear that racket. Dogs came in, you know how to stack it. Don't take it wrong, but I'ma need my ends though. I got tigers on my chest like Kenzo. Rail came, yeah, he putting that Benz though. Carol's here, man, you know he stay 10 toes. Big dog, man, you know I ain't worried. Bent up, so